Welcome to part 2 of the Introduction to Webinars. In part 1 we looked at what a webinar was and the various names used and discussed the advantages and disadvantages when using this technology. In this part we will be taking a closer look at some specific web conferencing programs and in particular the user interface. This will help you identify some of the common features that can be found across all these applications and should help you become orientated when you join your first webinar. When it comes to web conferencing programs, we are certainly spoilt for choice, but with over 30 systems to choose from, we do not have time to look at each one in depth in this introductory video. I've listed below some of the major systems that are available in no particular order, such as Adobe Connect, Big Blue Button, BlackboardCollaborate, Cisco WebEx, Microsoft Link Online, Citrix GoToMeeting, Fuse Meeting and Skype. You'll notice that Skype is in red because strictly speaking it is not a web conferencing program. However, it is the one program that you are most likely to have heard of and perhaps even used, which features many of web conferencing facilities, even though it's not actually classed as a web conferencing program in itself. So what does a web conferencing program look like, and what should you expect to see when you log into your first webinar? Over the next few minutes we'll be taking a look at 4 web conferencing systems and examining the common features that you will find across all of them, where to find them, and often the different names that they are called, so that at the end of this you will perhaps feel a little more confident that you know where to look or what to look for in terms of orientating yourself when you first log into a web conferencing session. Starting with Adobe Connect, this is the whiteboard area. This is where you would view any slides that a presenter wanted to share with you, any applications that they wanted to share, and also any web pages that they wanted you to view. At the bottom left of this area you'll see some navigation buttons that allow you to move the slides one slide forward or one slide back. In the bottom right hand corner you'll see a button called Sync. This allows a presenter to break the link between their slides and the slides that you're seeing, so when they advance a slide it no longer takes you with it. This allows them to preview a slide without moving everybody else's. You'll see at the top of the whiteboard area several greyed out buttons. That basically means that with your present permissions you have no right to use them. In the case of Adobe Connect, these buttons include access to the drawing tools and also application sharing. This section contains the video panel and the attendees panel. The video panel is where you will see the talking head video normally of your presenter, but it also gives you the option of turning your own webcam on, in this case with the Start My Webcam button, so that others can see you as well. Beneath that, the attendees panel lists all the various people who are actually joining your particular session. In the case of Adobe Connect, they use the term hosts, presenters and participants. Most web conferencing software will have some kind of toolbar, often at the top of the screen, where they will offer easy access to certain functions. In the case of Adobe Connect you can see in particular icons for speakers, microphones, camera and some kind of raised hand function to allow you to get the attention of your presenter. This is the chat panel called Q&A in Adobe Connect, where all the chat messages will be displayed. These are the voting tools in the poll panel, as it's known in Adobe Connect, where you can vote yes or no and the results can be displayed graphically or numerically. The left-hand panel is the Files panel or File Transfer Library, where online resources are made available for participants to download. And the right-hand panel is the Web Links panel, This is Adobe's method of sending participants on a web tour by typing the web address in the space at the bottom right of the panel. The presenter can then take participants to a particular website of their choice. The second web conferencing program that we will look at is Blackboard Collaborate, and once again we will start with the whiteboard. In the top left corner there are tools to add individual slides or delete a particular slide, as well as being able to change the zoom level so that you can adjust how your slides will look on your screen. In the top right corner you will find the navigation tools, including the familiar forward and back arrow, which allows you to advance your slides one at a time or move them back one at a time, as well as a drop-down menu which allows you to jump to a specific slide in one go. This is the whiteboard toolbar for Blackboard Collaborate, which allows users to annotate whiteboard slides with lines, shapes, images and text, very similar to some of the tools that you will have on an interactive whiteboard. This is Collaborate's audio and video panel, where you can see still images or talking head videos of speakers. In the top right corner you will see a strange icon with a red cog on a blue microphone. This is called the Audio Setup Wizard in Collaborate, but you will find a similar button on all systems that will allow you to calibrate and test out your audio. Audio problems are the biggest issue that will undermine any web conferencing session, so this is probably the most important button to look for when you first join any online session. To the right of this is a menu icon which enables you to access an expanded menu of features relating to this particular panel. This is again quite common in many systems, so keep an eye open for methods of expanding a drop-down menu that will give you access to additional features. To the left of this panel, beside the text, audio and video, you'll see a black arrow pointing downwards. If you click this, you can collapse the panel and minimize it. Click it again and it'll expand it. So if you're in a session and you can't find a panel, look to see whether perhaps it has been collapsed, and then you will be able to expand it to get access to it. At the bottom of this panel you will see a talk button and a video button. The talk button allows you to turn your microphone on and off, and the video button allows you to turn your webcam on and off. Above this is the two sliders. One slider controls the level coming out of your speakers or your headset, and the other controls the level of your microphone. If any of the text is greyed out, this means the feature is not available to you and is a convention used commonly across all systems. This is the participants panel. This is where Collaborate shows who is actually logged into the session. At the top of the panel you will see who you are and what your status is. In this case, Professor Monroe is a moderator. Underneath that are a set of buttons that allow you to feedback and interact with speakers and other participants in the session using a variety of yes, no, tick boxes, raised hands, emoticons and other messages. Beneath that is the actual list of people in the session, and Collaborate uses the term moderator and participant. At the top here is Professor Monroe, who's a moderator, and then you have 4 participants underneath. Collaborate also uses a technique of using icons to the right of each user to indicate what particular feature they are using, and in this case Professor Monroe is running a web tour and Alexandra and David are using the chat facility. That brings us nicely to Collaborate's chat panel, where you can see a record of all the chat conversations that have taken place. To actually enter a chat message, you use the white entry panel at the bottom, type in and press return, and then your chat message will appear in the chat panel and will be seen by everybody attending the session. In Collaborate we have tabs at the bottom of the chat panel which allow you to swap from chatting to everybody in the room to either individuals or just to the moderators who are running the session. Finally, with Blackboard Collaborate, let's have a quick look at some of the buttons and menus available at the top of the screen. On the right hand side you'll see three very large buttons which allow you to swap between what Collaborate calls master modes, so it allows you to swap between the whiteboard view, the application sharing view and the web tour view, as well as the familiar file, edit, view, tools, windows, help menu bar that you will get at the top of any application window. Turning our attention now to Cisco WebEx, the third of the applications that we're looking at. And once again we have the familiar whiteboard area, and at the bottom you can see various tools that will allow you to zoom the whiteboard to your preferences or even make it full screen. The participants panel in Cisco WebEx combines the talking head video along with the list of people attending the session. At the top we can see some familiar buttons, including the little triangle that will expand or collapse that particular panel. If you look at the first participant, you will actually see some buttons to the right showing how one can turn on and off cameras and microphones. Also notice the icons indicating whether people's cameras are turned on, and at the bottom various buttons, including one for making a particular attendee a presenter, giving them additional features, as well as controlling the audio and adding a participant. This is the chat panel in Cisco WebEx, and things should start to be looking familiar now. In the top is the area where all the recorded chat will be shown. At the bottom is the white area where you would put your text in, type it in, click the send button, and the drop down menu allows you to control whether you are sending the chat to everybody in the room or just to particular individuals. And finally for Cisco WebEx we have the familiar whiteboard toolbar, allowing you to add content such as text, lines, shapes and images, as well as the navigation tools to allow you to move your slides forward or backward one at a time, or use the drop down menu to actually jump to a particular slide. And then finally at the top the full complement of expandable drop down menus in the traditional file, edit, view type format. So let's see whether you've got your eye in now using the last web conferencing system we're going to look at, Fuse Meeting. Let's imagine you've just logged in, and let's see now whether you can identify some of the common areas that you should be looking for. Let's start with the obvious. Can you identify and locate the whiteboard area? Hopefully that didn't give you too many problems. Next, what if you want to know who is attending the session? You want to find out who is actually logged in. Which part of the screen would you identify as containing that information? Were you looking in the right part of the screen? In Fuse Meeting it's called Web Attendees. While we're here, which of those people in that list is your presenter? It is the daily demo, in blue, so it looks different, and called host. If you wanted to gain the presenter's attention, what button would you use? It is indeed the raised flag button, and that would basically alert the presenter that you either had a problem or needed to ask a question. And finally, what part of the screen would you use to start a chat conversation? And of course, you all got that right. While we're here in the meeting chat panel, what button would you use to actually collapse that panel so you could no longer see it? Correct, the button in the top right corner. We now know that there are many web conferencing systems to choose from, and we've had an opportunity to see what a few of them look like. Hopefully this will help you to identify and locate some of the more common features that you might be needing, such as using the chat panel, turning your microphone on or off, or advancing the slides on your whiteboard. In part 3 we will be taking a closer look at the universal features found on pretty well every web conferencing software program, and also some of the more advanced features found on more expensive systems. We will also discuss the limitations to be aware of when running your own webinar, and also some of the common pitfalls that need to be avoided. I look forward to seeing you in part 3.